Come and join the party. These books are for you, you and everybody. Is it like these hoes? 'Cause these books are for us and everybody, yeah. Open your mind and take a look. Let's open up a book with grief. Come and join the party. These books are for you, you and everybody. Is it like these hoes? 'Cause these books are for us and everybody, yeah. Open your mind and take a look. Let's open up a book with grief.
Hi everyone, welcome to These Books Are For Everybody, a podcast that works to make beautiful lit accessible and exciting because, much like these hoes, these books are for everybody. I am super excited today. I'm talking to Jemimah Wei. She is the author of the debut, The Original Daughter. It was wonderful. We got to talk in Mississippi, but it was on a panel. Yes, it was on a panel. So I'm really excited to be able to just jump in and actually talk about this book, like spend some actual time on it. Jemimah, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited about this for similar reasons. I met you, I want to say it was about a week or 2 weeks ago in Mississippi, and I just knew we could keep talking about this book. But, and also if we have unfettered conversation, we can go down 500 different rabbit holes. Whereas on a panel, we have to be really conscious of the audience because, there are topics to stay on. But
oh my gosh.
I was like, wow, I'm so ready to yap.
No, I completely feel you. And I had so many feelings about this book as I was reading. And all the questions I was putting together, I was just like, I have 60 minutes. So, I had to, honestly, you and Natalie, it was both about sisters. You all, I'm talking about Natalie Guerrera's book, My Train Leaves at 3. Your books were both about sisters, and there was some grief involved for different reasons. And so I was trying to pair that and lob it, but Natalie didn't come. So Jemimah just had to catch all of those questions. But had I known, I would have asked more pointed questions to everybody, but that's how it goes. But no, briefly, just to set the scene for the folks, could you give us your elevator pitch executive summary of The Original Daughter?
Sure. So The Original Daughter is my firstborn. I worked on her for 9 years and it took 11 years to publish. It is about two sisters, one who is adopted growing up in the rapidly modernizing Singapore, and they become, alternatively, intimately codependent and competitive, but, very, very close as they grow up on their way to fame and fortune, trying to navigate a very changing, progressing Singapore. Obviously, as books go, shit happens and things don't quite go the way they want to. But through it all, I think one of the questions that I really was trying to figure out while writing this book was, what can love endure and how do we choose family? How can our chosen family be chosen family every single day?
Yes, I remember you mentioning the What Can Love Endure in Mississippi. I pegged that because I really want to dive into it. But I'm always curious when I'm talking to a writer, and I know you are a professional trained writer, like you have an MFA. Is this did you know this was going to be the debut, or were you dinking around? You were like, oh, I'm going to try this, and you landed on this? Or when you got out of school, you were like, this is the one that's getting published?
I went the other way around. I went to school because I had written this novel. So
okay.
I started writing this novel in 2014, and I knew this would kind of be, the exact shape of the novel took a while to come to me, but I knew these were the characters. I knew the big things that were going to happen. I just was not equal to the ambition of my book, right? Because I was really a lot younger, and craft-wise, I was kind of all over the place. I was just feeling it out.
Yeah.
And, just in terms of what I was trying to do with the vision of the book, I just wasn't at the stage where I could handle that yet. And so I was writing on my own for, I want to say 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then I really got stuck. I didn't know how to bring this book to the next level. But I had kind of maybe I want to say a draft 0.5. I don't want to say first draft because it was
Okay.
I don't even want to look at her right now. But so she was draft 0.5, and I was like, okay, so I have all these words, I have these characters. I don't know how to make this a book, Yeah. And so at that point, a writer, the Malaysian author Tash was like, why don't you apply for your MFA? And I was like, what's an MFA? because I was born and raised in Singapore. We don't have that. We don't even have that in Asia. Like there is no English language program. I mean, now there are a few, but there was one in Hong Kong. It started for a while, it shut down. So there were really no avenues for, where can I go and get a degree in writing. And I mean, my stance on this is kind of like go back and forth. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to get a degree in writing if you have the environment where these things, these realities of being a writer is, not like an alien reality. But for me, it was very much important, very, very, very important to my conception of myself to be like, okay, I want to really dedicate my time to this. At that point, I had been working for 8 years. And so I quit my job and I moved across to America. And at that point, I didn't know anything, right? I was like, okay, where should I go? And they were like, apply to Columbia. I was like, all right, I'll do that. So I went to Columbia and I was like, hi, I have
Jemimah, I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
Somebody casually told you to apply to an Ivy League school, and you're like, sure, yeah, why not? And then you did it and got in. That's not a casual thing. People don't get into Columbia every day. Most people don't get into Columbia.
Thanks. I mean, I'm happy about it too. I had a good time.
I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm sorry. That's amazing. And you're saying that like you can get a writing degree in Asia, but you just can't get a writing degree in English, or there are no writing degrees?
Okay, so I don't know if there are writing degrees not in English because my primary language is English. Singapore's language of administration, everybody speaks English, right? So our language of education is also English. There is now a writing and publishing masters that they're trying out. It's a very, very recent thing. So and at some point there was like a masters of writing in the university in Hong Kong, but I think it ran out of funding or something, and so it stopped running. So and also so you could maybe take like a master class here and there. Okay. And for me, I took a degree in English with a minor in creative writing. Okay. And then I took a master's that I thought was going to be creative writing, but really was a master's in English with a specialization in creative writing. Okay. Where there were no classes about creative writing. There was one class on time and place. And that is how I met this writer who was like, you should apply for your MFA. Every other, I mean, very much the concept for this, at least at the form, this was like 10 years ago, right? So at least at the point where I was taking this degree, the idea was we are giving you support, like a degree and support to just work on your stuff. Yeah. So I was like, can I take a class? And they were like, where? There were no resources. I think there is a change like right now. There's like a movement to it, but it is not anywhere as close to, it was like, let's just say I was really shocked when I Googled what is an MFA. And I realized you could download a syllabus, and there were like 50 courses you could take on different aspects of writing. Yeah. So it's just
That's beautiful. And so you got more training to tell this story better. Like that's how.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And so you told it's out in the world. You got hyped up by Roxane Gay and Paul Beatty. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. I mean, I am a big fan of Roxane's. And not even from the books initially, I read her Tumblr back when she was blogging about the movies that she liked. She was like, I really like, these are my feelings on Twilight. These are my feelings on the Hunger Games. I was like, she's hilarious. Yeah. And then I realized she had a book. So I bought the book and I read it, and I've been a fan ever since.
Was it bad?
And so it was Hunger, actually.
Okay. Sure.
Wait. No, sorry, I'm wrong. It's not Hunger. Hunger was a book I bought later, and an event I attended that she was speaking at. The first book I read of hers was An Untamed State. Okay. Which I really, really love. So, and so yeah, now I've read everything she's ever written, and I really love her. But I don't know her, And so when I sold the book, the announcement, the Publishers Marketplace announcement went on Twitter, RIP, and she had kind of. And then she replied, she said, I would love to, this sounds really good, I would love to read it. And so I shot my shot, I emailed her, I said, hi, thanks for replying. I am this person. Yeah. And like if you really want to, I would really, really love to send you a copy of the book. She was like, sure, would love to blurb it, send it. And she said that without even having read it. And so I was just so moved. And because I think one thing that really stuck with me from following Roxane all these years is how she is really good at opening the door behind her, like keeping the door open. Yes. Just how I remember like she bought out a movie theater so people could watch Black Panther. Like I remember that from her blog. So these because I don't think that blog exists anymore. Like I can't back this up with evidence, but I remember reading it, right? So I was like, Yeah, and so too, that the fact that she exists in the world is enough for me. But the fact that she then was like, well, this sounds great, I would love it, just give it to me. And I was like, but you don't know, it could suck. I mean, I don't think it does, but it could. So I was so, really moved, really, really, really moved by that.
Oh, that's
And
so beautiful.
yeah, and obviously I have great, great, great admiration and respect for Paul. I actually met Paul at Columbia. So Roxanne, I don't know at all.
Okay.
Paul was my thesis advisor, and
Okay.
he had read parts of the book before, and then he very clearly was like, when are you? It's actually interesting. He was the one who pushed me to send the book out, because I had graduated, I had moved to the West Coast because I was a Stegner Fellow at Stanford, and I came back to visit New York, and I had coffee with him. He was like, so what's up with the book? And I was like, well, still writing. And he was like, nah, I know you. You're not writing. You're moving 3 commas around. What are you doing? Have you queried? You haven't queried. Query tomorrow. I was like, tomorrow? I want to query tomorrow.
Around is hilarious. That's so
Yeah,
you're stalling.
I was like, I know you. You're just gonna just tinker that like one sentence. I change the tenses like 500 times. Like, you're probably done.
Yeah.
And then he was like, when do you want to send it out? I was like, maybe I'll be ready in 6 months. He was like, no.
Today.
And then he was like, I think you're ready. But he was like, well, I don't want to tell you what to do, which I also respect, right, guy? I think the thing with writers who we respect a lot is I think they tend to be really careful with the kind of advice they give, because a younger writer could just absorb everything and go really, full on with it. So he was like, well, okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you really, really, really feel you're not ready, you need to take the time that you need. But I personally, of what I know of you, think that you probably are ready.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And so he actually pushed, and he said, anything you need, like, I know you, I know your work ethic, I know your work. When the book comes out, be very happy to support it. And so he loved the book. And so that was like a personal connection from the fact that I went to Columbia.
Yeah.
And I'm very moved that he showed up for me.
Oh man, that's wonderful and deserved. The book is beautiful. Okay, we're
Thank
gonna
you.
jump in. I think the place that I want to start is Singapore's education system, because it's like dog eat dog. I could like the level, like the amount of time and like pressure on the kids, that I feel like in my experience, I grew up in the Midwest. There are places for that. Like there's a private school in Milwaukee called Marquette. It's an all boys school. And it's like, it sounds akin to what you described in the book. But based on what you described, it feels like that's just pervasive. Like that is the expectation. You're going to try and go as far as you can educationally. And if you don't, but like, was I getting that right? It just felt really like the kids felt like they were under so much pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Singapore is a pressure cooker system. I feel like that is what it's kind of known for. And it's because we're a small country, and the national narrative has always been our biggest asset is our brains. So, better make good use of it. So, in Singapore, there is this sense that, you work as hard as you can to get far. And another thing that doesn't get raised that often is we are a young country. We are 60 years old. We, our day of independence is 1965. And so I think for the last 60 years, there has been this coalescing of like, where is this country going to be? What are we going to be known for? Navigating what our position is going to be globally, because we're very, very small. We're the size of maybe Manhattan. And so because of that, like you could get from one end to the other end of Singapore 45 minutes in a car, right?
Yeah, I read your short story about the the gambling father, and I was like that is a really small country. Yes.
Yeah, the fact that you can walk across the whole country.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
And so because of that, there's this great sense that our fortunes are not fixed, but they will be. And so you better, you have a hand in your fortune. And obviously that thinking is a very individual thinking in like, that doesn't at all think about the structures we live in, the capitalistic structures we live in.
Yeah.
But there is that sense. And there are some people who can, sidestep that, right? So again, it's what privileges are you born with? If you're born into extreme wealth, maybe you could not do very well at school and still be able to jump out of the Singapore system, go to a different country, and just by virtue of the fact that Singaporeans are so trained to work at a certain ethic, you tend to not struggle very hard if you go to a different school. Let's just put it that way.
Okay,
and so
I feel you.
Yeah. So because of that, these girls, the two protagonists of the story, they are very clear from the start. They're like, this is the kind of family we're born into. But the world is changing. And so there's a sense of slight optimism where you're like, it could change. Our futures are still unwritten. very quickly they will be written, right? And they have the sense, and whether or not this sense is naive, I think is something that the book aims to look into. Like, is this a naive sense, or are their futures a matter of hope, a matter of will, or is it a matter of structure?
Yeah.
And then they have like all these other characters, right? Characters who have less hope than them, less possibility. Characters who have more, like their classmates who it seems like, they don't do well. They seem like they're all on the same playing ground, and then suddenly there is like a side quest, a little shortcut someone can take due to not just wealth, but just people knowing people. So it could be as simple as you are born into the kind of family where you atmospherically absorb the kind of linguistic knowledge to navigate certain systems that everybody else is struggling because they're just so unfamiliar with. And these things, it keeps getting raised to me in conversations around the book. But then I think the question I had for you, Cree, is like, I don't know other kinds of school systems. Like, I was like, is there a school that's chill? Like, what was it like? Like, to read this book and say, well, people are stressed out. Like, are people not stressed out when they go to school in America?
No, so I went to a public school in a suburb outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Menominee Falls, which is like relatively conservative, but like my parents built the house I grew up in. It was like 3,000 square feet. So like that's like those are that like half acre lots. That's where we're growing up. But it's like 2% black, mostly white. And so, and I think I do overall identify as an ambitious person, but it didn't, like, for example, I'll tell you this, Jemimah. I was doing terrible in econ, okay, like terrible. And I'm kind of freaking out about it. Like, I need to bump this grade up. It was like a C, or it might have been a D. And I was like, it needs to be at least a B for me to get out of here. So I just write a rap. Like, I write a little, like a 2-minute rap that took very little, but it's just like a razzle dazzle. Like, I have somebody beatbox and I come in a fun outfit and I go to the front of the class. It's not even my class. And I tell the teacher, please just let me do this, please, whatever. And he's like, whatever. And so I do it. The class loves it. I get a B. Like, and I hadn't done any work. Like, I hadn't done any of the work, So it was like being able, there's an aspect of personality that could help you get through school, along with like, I wasn't necessarily a terrible student. So because I'm not convinced our teachers a lot of times were that smart either. You know what I mean? So it's not like, so like the person trying to hold me to this standard isn't necessarily like existing in this standard as well. So, I mean, so I think you could do as much as you wanted to do. There was like a girl who left my school and went to Columbia. The valedictorian of the school 2 years ago went to Yale. But like, a lot of kids just go to, there's a school in Wisconsin called Whitewater. They'll just go to University of Whitewater, or they'll just go to, so it's like, it's not the marker I feel like it should be. Because I know people can get degrees or pass the classes without having actually engaged in any type of like critical thought. And it sounds like that's like not the case here. You have to work to get this done.
Right. Yeah. Well, there is another like side path, which is you could get into a school by being an athlete or having like a super, super, super specific talent.
Okay.
Which actually gets very subtly referenced in the book when Genevieve, the narrator, is finding herself at like the end of her road in her A levels. She's like, I kind of suck. And somebody's like, well, do you have a talent? She was like, no, was I supposed to get one of those? But if she had a talent, like if she was like, because to be honest with you, that was my path. Like I sang my way into school. Yeah, I was like a good student, but I have exam anxiety, like I hate doing an exam. So I walk into an exam totally prepared, walk out and be like, I don't know what just happened in there.
Sure.
And so they evaluated the fact that I was generally like good in school, but exams just like didn't do so well. And then I auditioned because I was like a soprano. And so there are very few at that time, there were very few like first sopranos that could hit a certain like note range. And so I got into my school of choice from my voice. So there are like side paths, but actually what you were saying, Cree, about an aspect of personality, I think it's something that is really interesting and also feeds into the book, because that is something that maybe comes naturally to someone immersed in that system, right? Where you're like, okay, there are other ways around a problem. If I'm not born with the same intuitive like adaptation for certain academic structures, there are ways around that. And that's something the girls had to learn in the book, right? They're like, okay, how can I capitalize on my personality to look for something else? Like look for a different way forward, look for a different way of forging my life that isn't just this blueprint that everybody around me has emulated.
Yeah. And to that point, it takes me to the point in the book where Jen tried to try out for the show and she like came and followed directions and it just wasn't
Mm-hmm.
hitting. And then Erin went, and it was just like this effortless like rollout of her emotion. I really feel bad for Jen all
Oh.
the time, like every time, because honestly, what is harder than like being ambitious and following the rules and just still not being enough? What's hard? Like, it's so rough.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Jen as well. I have great affection for her, as I do all my characters, right? And I feel like that is something that really is a true line through all my work, which is I have affection for characters who are failing better. So unfortunately, so the thing I really value about relationships is even in real life is like I value the effort, right? I value even if we're not perfect, we're failing upwards every single time.
Yeah.
And so that it finds its way into my characters. Unfortunately, a component of feeling better is still failing, and so she still fails. A poor baby. But I feel like many people feel that way because since this book has come out, Jen is a very divisive character. People either really hate her or really love her, and the people who come to me at readings in the signing line who are like, I feel like Jen is me, and they always say it with a bit of like a bit of a whisper. They're like,
Yeah,
I
because
don't want
that's
to admit.
embarrassing, Jemima.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, okay, I'm not an easily embarrassed person. So to me, I'm like, is it embarrassing? But
Yes, because Jen was
yeah,
raggedy. I would
yeah,
like to say we met her very young. Like she was like 8 when we met her. And first off,
yeah.
as a child, I would like to tell the audience, she was sweet as pie. She was locked in. Erin came to the house. She embraced her. She was irritated I think all those emotions were fair. I don't want to ruin
Right, right.
anything for everybody, but when Erin comes to the house, Jen first is like trying to be nice. Erin's obviously working through some trauma, and so like she kind
Yeah.
of has an attitude, but they eventually coalesce and they become unbreakable. But then as she sees that Erin is like the easiest way for me to put it is she's just like better at life. Like there's
Mhm.
something in like her relationship with resilience was way healthier than Jen's. And so I just to relate to Jen to me means that you should go to therapy.
Well, I think all the characters have to go to therapy,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But if they did go to therapy, I would have no book. So that's I feel like that's fine. But okay, so the thing that you brought up about resilience, I think is really interesting and not something that many people have pointed out. But it
Mhm.
is something that I was thinking about greatly, which is actually it's not just how ambitious you are, but it's what your relationship with failure, your psychological relationship with failure is really important. It's a kind of adaptability and resilience that is a soft power, it's an inherited skill
Mm.
where if you're born into the kind of family where you see people taking big risks and being like, all right, 50% doesn't work out, but 50% really does,
Mhm.
you might have a different relationship with failure and with how to learn to move through the world, which may be tough on you.
Yeah.
Whereas for Jen, she cracks when she can't hard hit her way through something. But I think an additional dimension of her relationship with Erin that complicates it is the fact that when she was growing up, Jen's only models were her parents and her grandmother, both of whom come from a very different generation before Singapore had made a really big shift. Whereas, so she's watching just the three of them. But
Yeah.
Erin is watching the parents, the grandmother, and Jen. So Jen is a learning point for Erin. And I feel like that's, like it's inevitable. If you live with somebody, you are gonna learn from them.
Yeah.
And so then the thing that I think because Jen wants to be the best person for her sister, because she loves her sister, right? But she
Mhm.
is also unfortunately the worst person around her sister because she's resentful. She's like, she's trying to be logical because she's not stupid. She's like, well, I
Yeah.
know that you're not purposely doing everything better, but the truth is, me being 1 year older than you, you've had like a 1 year flashlight, right? You have a forecast into the future, how things might go for in a year. And so you can just choose to go a different way. And if
Yeah.
something worked out well for me, you could just do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think she's very resentful of that while trying to negotiate her own feelings around the fact that that is just an issue with the chronology of birth. Like you can't help the fact that you're a year older, you're always gonna be a year older. And so that relationship to me was very interesting. I think also that's also why I have so much affection for her.
Yeah.
I just feel like she's trying her best, but her
Are you
best
an
is
oldest
not it's
daughter?
not great. I am an eldest. I have two younger sisters. And this question always comes up
Yeah.
because everyone's like, you must have sisters. Actually, one of my sisters is visiting right now. She's just at work.
Okay.
But I'm actually very close to my sisters. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, because the book is, written in first person, my family, they've all read the book. They know it's not about them, but everybody else will probably
I
think it's
never
about
thought
them.
it. I can say
Okay, great.
on
Okay,
record
good, good,
that I
good.
never, as soon as I met you, I was like, she's not giving traumatized. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Thanks.
and no, I did not think this was about your family. I wouldn't have even known if you were the older sister.
Oh, yeah, no, I am. I'm an eldest Asian daughter. I feel like that, and a Virgo. So
Oh my God. Oh my God. What is your heart rate? Your resting heart rate has to be like through the roof.
oh no, my resting heart rate is actually really low. I don't know why. It's like 50 something, and I'm
Oh
like,
my,
am I alive right now? Like, what's happening?
really glad you brought up that Erin had Jen to watch, because that's what I was going to ask you. Why was her relationship so much better with like adaptability? Okay, it's because she had her third person to watch. And that year, like emotionally, when children are a year apart, it seems to shrink. But I guess like as they were going forward, it just felt like it was getting like bigger and bigger and bigger. Like
Yeah.
so. No, I feel that. I do. While I was preparing to talk to you today, I ran across something that you said in a different interview that I loved, because as you said when you told the premise of the book, Erin is not like really biologically tied to that family. I mean, she is through like half sibling, like that. It's her. The Jen's dad is her uncle.
Yeah, so they're really more like cousins.
Right. So they're really more like cousins, but they didn't even know about each other. And everyone is trying so hard to be like, no, you're part of the family. You're part of the family. And she's like, listen, we know the deal. And so what you said that I pulled out of the conversation you had, I think it was with Barnes and Noble. Sometimes the narratives we push on each other out of love may not be as helpful as confronting the thing as it is. And that really, like, I love that, because I do think people a lot of times choose peace over truth, and that just like disintegrates the thing. And I just was wondering what that was like to unpack in this story. What was it like exploring that?
Well, I, was really interested, and I think I mentioned this to you when we met a couple of weeks ago as well. I was really interested in this idea of people who really, really, really want to be close to each other, right? And I think that desire can be destructive because, like you said, people value peace above all. And, just linking into a little bit from our previous question, the thing about Erin, the reason why she's so resilient and adaptable also is because her trauma was front-loaded in life. She's had the worst possible thing happen to her. She knows the stakes are very high for her. And as a child, she's 7 when she enters this family. She's like, I've already lost one family. I can't lose another. I can't. And so everything, and she thinks the world of her mom and her sister. And so everything she's done, like I see her as a little bit people pleasing, and I don't say that as a criticism. I just see that as an adaptation. Like, I feel like she is someone who really, 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 really desires love to the extent that she would self-abandon. She would kind of like eliminate herself in order to hold on to this love, which is very unhealthy. And Jen, on the other hand, cannot see this. She cannot see this clearly. And another question I had while working through this book was, with the people closest to us, sometimes I think we are trapped in the narratives that we had back in the day, right? We don't refresh our narratives. And then it feels like a betrayal when the people that are the closest to us have an interior life that is so separate from what we thought that we thought it was. And so I think everybody experiences this. Like, you experience this with your, like, maybe like your partner, your children, you just feel like, I thought I knew everything. I thought that we were this close, and then something happens that really shakes the core foundation of how I perceive our relationship to be built on, like, this understanding. But that's obviously not true. We are different. We are all different from each other. And part of living together is like life together cannot be frictionless, just by virtue of the fact that we are not amoebas, where we're like being ourselves. And so it was really interesting for me to be able to like work through that. I was like, I really wanted people to go, I wanted to go closer and closer to each other, and for that to create more and more friction. And for me, really, I was thinking, how can we have an expansive vision of our relationships and each other to the point where we can accommodate those differences and not see them as devastating, like absolutely devastating. Obviously, these characters are unable to do that, and they're unable to do that. Like, every character is not able to do that. So it's not just the girls, right? But it's the mom, the dad. So that generation I worked on for a really, really long time. The dad, the grandmother. So a lot of that stuff didn't make it in. But it's just the fact that, like, just backstory in my head. I guess not canon because I didn't write it down. But the grandfather left. I mean, this is not a spoiler since it's quite early in the book, but the grandfather left the grandmother very early on because he wasn't ready to be married, and marriage scared him. He left. And when he left, the grandmother couldn't believe it. So she was like, this was right after the war. She was like, he must have died. He must have gone. He must have been attacked. Like, I guess we'll never know. But I think the dad, like, so the son, her son, basically Jen's dad, he knows on some level. And there is a reference, very subtle reference in the book to the fact that he stood by her, he collaborated with this delusion as a child. And the fact that he, his path in life was very set because his priority was, how can I support my mother through this terrible thing? The whole neighborhood, like I think the sense you get in the book also is Singapore is very claustrophobic. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So if he knows and he's a child, everybody knows he left you, girl. Like he didn't die somewhere else. And so
gone.
He's gone and
Yeah.
he's not coming back. And so the fact that he had to defend his mother in the neighborhood, the fact that he had to make all his life decisions, and then for some years late, and then that was also the reason why Sue, the mom, for him was so attractive. The verve for life she represents, the freedom and the unfetteredness that is so beautiful, so charismatic at a young age. That to him could have been freedom, but that freedom doesn't stay freedom, right? When your life becomes more and more restricted, that can look at like a chain to you, can look like a reminder of everything you cannot be. And so their relationship changes as well because they they can't accommodate the other person changing. And so that's also why for the dad, when the grandmother, at the start of this novel, she's like, well, guess what? He wasn't dead. There's this other family. To him, it's this huge betrayal. He's like, this is it. So everything I did for the last 30 years was like a joke to you. We're just going to accept that this is okay. This is not okay. Like, what was the point of everything I did? And so he's working through a lot. And so I think in our panel, you said, wow, the men in this book are raggedy. I agree.
He was so raggedy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also I understand why he is the way he is. Because I guess because I have worked out everything about this character, I just feel very much like every difficult decision that a character makes, I feel like they got to a point where internally they believe they have no other option. It's this decision or death. So it is like an issue of survival. You're doing things because believing the other thing, that something else is possible, would lead to a kind of ego or self-death, right? And with the grandmother, it's that case as well, for her to admit, I was abandoned. But she finally does admit it, right? And then she dies very quickly. She's like,
yes.
I'm dead, I'm out.
Yes,
yeah, so
to admit that killed her. Literally, she was much
killed
wanted to be in the denial. Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. And then so part of like our relationship is also, so there's no one answer for relationships, right? It's not like you can say, okay, every single day I'm gonna just tell you my truth. Sometimes that can also ruin a relationship.
Absolutely.
So a relationship is a fluid, life, electric thing. And so I think the most generous way we can be with each other is to honor that and not force a narrative on someone else or force a truth on somebody else if they are not ready. Like just to be able to like constantly recalibrate and to take stock of where we are at every single day. And so I think sometimes relationships can cruise if you're too familiar. And that is also why what you mentioned earlier about how we shouldn't like push narratives on each other from my interview with Miwa Mesa at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
I really do feel that way, and I do feel that relationships are labor. And I don't mean labor in a bad way. I just mean they are a lot of effort. They are a lot of labor. You can't just autopilot a relationship. That's how relationships die.
Yes.
And so another thing that was very interesting to me was the fact that I think that society, like they support this labor in a romantic relationship, right? But friendship is the one relationship where you are just choosing to do it. And so that is what is very precious to me, actually. The fact that if you stop, people will be like, all right, yeah, you guys drifted apart. But it actually is so emotionally important to us. And when this book started out, they weren't sisters, they were friends. I just thought to myself, I wanted to write a book about female friendship. And then I thought, why not make them sisters? Because you just try and, with writing, put them in smaller and smaller and smaller circumstances, right? To increase attention. And I was like, all right, put them in the same family and see how that works out. And then the book came out from that.
No, I feel you on, we don't give enough attention to platonic relationships and the importance of them. And I love you saying that relationships are labor. One narrative that I hate on the internet is that like a romantic relationship, if it's correct, it shouldn't be work. I hate, and whenever I see women getting on like saying like, yeah, I've been married for 10 years. I've been married for 20 years. Every day has been, and I'm like, you're lying, but or you're just like out of touch with yourself. So either way.
Exactly.
But it does make me think about, and I wanted to ask this in Mississippi, but I feel like I didn't have the space, but I feel like I do now. Jen's dad's like emotional stuntedness harmed so many people. And I'm just curious, like, what do we all suffer because of the emotional stuntedness of men? Like, I think, like, as a whole, they don't understand the labor. They don't understand the lulls all the time. And people suffer because of that.
Totally. I mean, so one thing I will say is I feel like everyone who is dysregulated, right, suffers from a certain level of stuntedness. But because of the structural, like, way society is built up, some people have greater impact than other people. And often in family situations, these are the men, right? These are the people who one thing that you do, the same thing done by the mom and the dad will not have the same impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that working through this book, I was like trying to being aware of that, but also trying to see this dad as a person. Because another thing that really is a pet peeve for me is when I read a book and I know that the characters have become caricatures of themselves.
Yeah.
I just feel like you can really trust the reader. You know, you can trust your reader to understand that you can have empathy for someone who's shitty, right? Like, so if you read a book where, yeah, right, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I read a book where the dad is like a villain and he's meant to be a villain and I was given no option but to feel that he's a villain, then I feel manipulated as a reader.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like I'm not so concerned with whether a reader thinks, hey, this character is like right or wrong. I just want a reader to read it and be like, this is a person. That to me is the mark of success for like creating a piece of fiction, right? That you read something and you don't have to agree or like disagree. You just have to be like, that seems like a person did it.
Yeah. The whole thing, the way that he left, and him and Jen trying to rekindle, and what that looked like, the growing pains of them trying to relearn each other, all felt, because yes, I'm irritated with him, but I can't deny the effort that he's trying to put in to make it correct. I could, so yes, I had very mixed emotions about the father. Very mixed emotions. So
yeah.
What is your relationship with competition based on like everything that, I mean, because we say ambition and we say resilience, but also competitive. It's just like, that's the like competitive. So like, how has that shown up in your life, and where is it now that you are older than you were when you were in primary school?
Right. So I think that I have a really unusual relationship with competition because I always worked in industries where I had no direct correlation. So it wasn't like there were performance reviews in the kind of work that I used to do. So I was really just competing with myself. But I would say I have like a really like shallow competitive spirit. Like, I'll give an example. If I'm playing Mario Kart, I get really upset if my cart is going in the wrong direction. But it's like kind of dumb. It's like no stakes competition, you know? Like, I would be playing like Dota. Do you know Dota? It's like my husband loves to play it. It's this like online game where you're teaming up people and trying to like attack the other tower. So I really suck at Dota. I'm so bad at it, but I'm so competitive. I'm just like, because we'll go to a computer shop and 10 of us will be playing the game and I'm like, who killed me? Who did? And I'm just like so upset about it. But it's not like I'm gonna leave the computer shop and be like angry all day, you know? I'm just, I can't believe someone killed me. So I have like that kind of competition where I'm just like, I really want to win a game, but also it's not that big a deal like if I don't win. It's just kind of like fun. It's fun to be that kind of competitive. It's just like low stakes fun. But in terms of like the bigger things in life, I just don't know like what is there to compete with, because I don't know that many other writers from growing up. I mean, now I do, right? Because I have a book out, so I know a lot of writers now. But I didn't know that many other writers, so who was I going to compete with? And what are we supposed to even compete on? Like, how many words you have? Like, we all know word count doesn't make a good book. So maybe in school, you know, I was like, I really wanted to do well because I wanted to have doors open for me. I wanted to go to a better school. I wanted to get scholarships. I wanted to be able to like leave the kind of life I knew and have a better one. And so in that sense, I was like, I was really, really hard on myself. I had a lot of pressure. I don't know that I would necessarily see that as competition though, because I don't think I'm the kind of person who would have something and then look at someone else and be like, I want that, you know, in that way, you know, I feel like, somebody's got to get that back. So I'd rather it be someone I know than some stranger. Yeah.
I love that. I wasn't expecting that. That's wonderful. So ambition is more of an internal thing versus competition is more relational to what people around you are doing.
I think so, because the thing about, especially for writing, let's keep it to writing because like I'm not sure how to comment on outside of that, but just with writing, right, there's like so little you can control. Like when the book goes out in the world, like, and more importantly, everything that happens to the book after the book is out doesn't have a bearing on the book that you made. Like the pages, the words are exactly the same. Empirically, they don't change unless you're like reprinting it 5 years later with like new notes or something. So in that sense, like I'm not somebody who wants to spend a lot of time thinking about things outside of my control, because then I'm given space that could be spent writing or like developing an idea to something that I can't change anyway. So if you're looking at like writerly ambition, I like it when good things happen, but I don't feel like they are necessarily like directly in contact with my artistic life.
Yeah.
They just seem to be an external thing that is like really, really wonderful, right? Because then it helps prolong the life of the book, or brings the book to other people.
Yeah.
But for me, like my ambitions artistically are very clear. I think it helps that I've always been very clear on those ambitions artistically. I was really, really clear with The Original Daughter, the things that I really, really, really wanted to ask of this book. And then so the real pain of like working on this book was not being equal to the ambition. For example, I really wanted to write a novel, like I mentioned earlier, about putting love through the test. But that actually is like a later development, right? Like the original question that I was really wrestling with is, can we live with integrity, like moral integrity, in a rapidly modernizing world? Can we? I don't know if we can. Like all the structures, the hyper-capitalistic modernizing structures that we live in, ferry us to like an end that seems predetermined. And so what is our like resistance every day? Is it to try and compete on that level? Or is it to like truly interrogate ourselves, our days, and be like, how do I want to live from moment to moment, from second to second? And can I live with a kind of integrity? And does the integrity ever change? And when I place the question of love within that question of where can integrity be upheld in the kind of world we live in, that is where I really struggled, because I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And I need to use these relationships to figure it out. For a long time, I couldn't figure it out. And so that's what I mean by that is the ambition of the book. I don't know if I'm equal to the ambition. But that to me also is like a productive ambition, a productive uncertainty, because if I knew that I could write the book I was about to set out to write, then it would be really pointless, I think. I don't feel like then in that case, like what is the purpose of a novel? I just don't know that mode is the right kind of mode for that kind of thinking. And so another thing I was thinking about really early on while working on this book was, when she moves to Christchurch, something happens to her. And I think to myself, what are the narratives? And this, okay, so I started writing this book before Me Too, right? So
Okay.
the conversations in my head were very different back then. And obviously the conversation has changed a lot in the last decade. But back then I really thought to myself, what are the narratives that we think are a huge deal that nobody else thinks are a huge deal? An early working title of this book was Smaller Crimes. And I think that kind of like feeds into I didn't use that title because like it's not very catchy, but it really like, helps you see where I was at, like 10 years ago, where I was thinking like, what are like small betrayals or small crimes, small things that are totally inarticulate, but they are not manifested in any physical way that we can point to. But these are things that matter to us. And so that actually is very difficult to write, because if you don't have something physical, like a physical correlative you can point to in the book, then it's very easy for a reader to be like, I don't get it. And then so all the work of the ambition of the book is then how can I make it so the reader can get it, even if they don't like it. So I think that is the kind of competition and ambition I find myself like really situated in most of the time. And really not so much of the other kind, which I think has like taken a while to get to. But yeah, because when you're a kid, you're just like, how can you don't know what you're doing as a kid, right? Like the big question is like, who am I? What do I want? And so if you don't know and you don't interrogate your life and your desires, you just go by everybody else's desires. And those desires are, I want to live a life that, it's like financially secure. I still want to live a life that's financially secure, right? But it's just like you're thinking to yourself,
art.
Exactly. Also, exactly. And so when you're young, you're just following the structures that are already like in place, and it really is very difficult to unthink or unlearn those things and ask yourself and interrogate what do I really want. But I feel like that is a way of owning time, really, because you can really change a lot of things in life, but you can't really change your time, like you can't go back. And so what we can do is not lose the time we are currently living in by looking beyond that time in a way that's unproductive, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. I love that. I'm not going to spoil the ending for everybody, but it was wild. It like heavy. I'm talking for Jen and Aaron. And because when we started this conversation, you said one of the questions you were unpacking that you said moved kind of to the later half of the book is, what can a relationship endure? How far can you push a relationship? Do you think their relationship survives what happened?
Maybe. I will say there is a reason I ended the book before they turned 30.
Yeah, because I also was sensitive to their age the whole time. Like, as I'm 35, me as like a late 20-year-old, emotionally, I feel like you increase emotionally in dog years from like 28 to 35. So I was just like,
that's so great. Yeah.
You notice? So I'm just like, I can let them be silly, but the thing was so finite that they had to experience. Even if you grow, can you heal from that?
Yeah. So I think that I am like an optimistic person generally. I'm hopeful about
Okay.
relationships generally. I would like for them to, but I just don't know if it will happen because I think the greater fear really. Okay, so the thing that for me makes it standing hopeful, right, is the fact that they still feel very strongly for each other. For me,
True.
indifference is a death knell of a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that can diffuse that strong feeling is time and circumstance. So as we stand, and this is again not a spoiler because it's literally the start of the book, one character is a massive movie star globally.
Yes.
Another character has like a what would be externally perceived as a much smaller life. They could conceivably go 5 years without talking
Yeah.
or even running to each other because they have access to different worlds right now. And so, do they feel strongly enough about their relationship to come back to each other? I don't know. I would hope so because I do think that, like what I said about Erin at the start, she's somebody who really, really, really wants love. And as a result, she's gone from being like a really private kid, a really shy kid, to like the ultimate star. She's hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Everybody can see her, but nobody knows her. I think that's like a really lonely way to be. And it's okay if you're in your like 20s, but or maybe even in your 30s. I don't know, but when you hit your 40s, your 50s, like I feel like different things are important. And yeah. So I don't know. People feel very differently about it. I've had readers write me fan fiction about the end of the book, which I think has been kind of like one of the great pleasures and surprises about releasing this book is seeing the take everyone else has had on it. And there's some where some people are really optimistic. They're really like bullish on Jen. They're like, oh, she's gonna make it. I'm like, okay, cool. And like it's just everybody has a different take. I personally am hopeful because of the depth of their feelings for each other, but I think they maybe need some time apart. I think the real balance is making sure that time doesn't extend into forever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
More fluffy stuff. Are you reading anything right now?
Yeah, I am currently rereading Lucy by the Sea. It's right by here. It's right here actually. By
Okay.
Elizabeth Strout. Yeah, which I really love. And I just finished reading Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. It's a Facebook whistleblower book. She's not allowed to promote it, which made me want to read it. It's kind of great. I read it on a flight from Singapore to New York a couple of days ago. It's like when I read it, I was like, wow, people suck. It's my big takeaway. But I was like, wow, okay, it's fascinating to me. I've never worked in tech, right? So to me, the internal workings of people who are very different from me, like their logic, it's really interesting to me. So I am reading, and actually I'm midway through The Devil Three Times by Ricky Fain, who we also were hanging out with. Yeah,
That's
exactly. So yeah, so I picked it up and I'm halfway through it, really enjoying it. What else am I reading? And I also reading Madness and Honey, the collected lectures of Mara Ruffle, but that's like lectures, so I don't have to read everything at one go. I read like one lecture every couple of days, so I'm moving much more slowly through that.
Yeah.
And I recently read the arc of Yingke's Cursed Daughters. It's coming out soon, which I'm very impressed, like very impressed by it. Yeah, have you read it?
No, it's on my shelf. Like I'm getting through The Devil Three Times with it. Did you read My Sister the Serial Killer?
I did. Okay. So actually, interestingly, in 2018, when I was still working on Original Daughter, and I was like, well, I need to find writers and figure out how writers live their life. I applied for an internship at Aiken Alexander, basically in like some firms in London. And so I went there and I did a 2-week internship at Aiken Alexander, which represents Oyinke when My Sister Serial Killer is coming out. So that's why I read it. I read the manuscript when I was interning at an agency, and I was like, wow, I'm like loving this. And then I followed her on Instagram or Twitter, I think, and I realized she was an Attack on Titan fan, which I also love. So I was like, wow, this is kind of great. And so many years have passed since then. And then when I knew that there was a new book coming out, I was really excited. And the publisher sent it to me, and I think it's fantastic.
I can't wait.
I think it's so good. Yeah.
It's one of my most anticipated for the year. So that's wonderful. And you read a lot of books at once. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think it's because I just have like different modes of thinking. Like nonfiction I would read on my Kindle. So the Careless People I read on my Kindle because it's connected to the library and I could just borrow a book from the library. I read like fiction in the evenings. So like I have books by my bedside. So that's when I read that.
Yeah.
I have books on my coffee table. So Ricky's books on my coffee table, which means that if I sit down to drink coffee, I will read his book. So I don't know. It's just like zones of existence, right? If I'm in this zone, this is the mind that becomes activated. And then when I leave that zone, that
It
part of my brain
closes.
kind of like goes, it closes, and then another door opens, and it's like it's time to go to this other part of my brain that has now become activated. It's like entering a different room, which like might clue you into the fact that I have ADHD, but I feel like that's okay.
So, because I can only do 2 at once max. So everything that you're telling me, I'm like, what? I can't. I would never finish a book if I engage with books like that.
Wait, what do you mean 2 at once? Do you read 2 like fiction books at once, or one fiction or not one nonfiction?
I can listen to a book and I can physically read a book. And then of
Okay.
course I do that separately. But then like right now I'm listening to The Idiot. But it's not, I shouldn't be listening to that. So like as I'm listening, I'm like, I need to go get this physical book. I can't
Right.
So that also chews up my time because I'll try, but like I listened to King Leopold's Ghost earlier this year and that was totally listenable. Like, we're getting stats, we're getting historical narrative, like, so, but I could never do as many books as you just mentioned. I wouldn't even know what I was reading ever
It's interesting because I can't listen to audiobooks.
at all. So
So,
you're physically
no.
reading 5 books right
Yeah. Yeah, I can't listen to an audiobook. I feel like someone's just talking at me.
now.
And I tried, and I'm like, when are you doing this? Because like, if I'm listening to an audiobook, I can't do anything with my body. I'm just sitting there. So it really bothers me.
That's the same as reading, Jemimah. You can't do anything with your body when you're reading. It's the same
But
thing.
no, I can. I can sit down and flip the pages. The only thing I can listen to is a podcast, because a podcast is a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's back and forth, back and forth. I feel
Yeah.
like the thing about audiobooks is there's no way for me to go into this audiobook, like it's being read to me.
Yeah.
It would be like sitting there and having someone talk at me for like 5 hours, which I think is fine. Like, so for podcasts, like I'll listen to it while I'm at the gym because I'm doing something else in my body that doesn't require my brain very much.
Yeah.
But I tried doing audiobooks that way too. It really was difficult for me. And then I figured out why it's so hard. It's because Singapore is small. And I know this is going to sound crazy, so stick with me.
Yeah,
But
I'm with you.
Singapore is small, so we don't have very much like transit time or downtime. Whereas in America, if you drive for 3 hours, I would probably listen to something for 3 hours because there's nowhere else to go, So most of the time when I ask people like, when are you listening to an audiobook? They're like, oh, when I'm driving or when I'm doing housework. And I'm like, oh, those things make sense.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing housework, I'm listening to a podcast, and I don't drive in America,
Okay,
Yeah.
because we only have one car. All of the things we have to get to every day, like schools and work, are within like a 2-mile radius. So
Right.
so a lot of times I'll just opt to walk, and the walk is like a 45-minute, hour-long walk. And then, I'm listening to an audiobook, but it requires, like, if I'm listening to fiction, like The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, I listen to that on audio. A lot of focus. Like, it's not like I can't be doing something that requires my brain. I have to be like, because there were so many characters, there were so many part 1, part 2, part 3. So it's definitely not passive listening. I really have to be like, I'm listening,
Wait, so I have a question. Could you listen to that audiobook while chopping a cucumber?
No.
Okay.
If I knew the recipe for the cucumber I was chopping, I could do it. But if I have to like think, so I told you we do random house projects. If I have to like tape up a room for paint, I can listen to an audiobook.
Okay.
But if it like, I'm trying to, if it's a new recipe, if it's anything that requires like a 1-2 step, it's got to be something mindless.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this book has been long enough that I wouldn't be a complete dick for asking, are you working on anything?
Oh, I am. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, with this first book, Original Daughter, like everybody is like, well, how did you get the idea? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because do people just randomly, it's so long, like, do people randomly get ideas? And then with the second book, I was like, I can tell you exactly when I sat down and thought about this book. So I was like, I guess people do get like a trigger point. Yeah. And so there are like, it's interesting with the second book that I'm working on, because I was working on a different book actually.
Okay.
I was doing research for another book, and I was like, okay, this is the next project that I'm interested in. That's what I want to do. And then suddenly one day when I was like in bed, I couldn't go to sleep, and I was like, something was really bugging me. So I started writing on my phone, which I never ever do. I'm a computer and desk writer.
Okay.
And then I was like, wow, this is dumb, because I've been in my phone typing for like an hour in the dark. So I got up and started working, and that night I wrote like 7,000 words of a new novel, which is completely different from the novel I was making preparation for. So
my God.
I know. And then so I was like, okay, well, I guess this is a new novel now.
That's so exciting. What I need, I love the pacing of this. I love the internal things that we were constantly unpacking. I love a protagonist that I like am struggling with but want to root for. And
Mhm.
that you just gave me all of that over and over and over again. My sister will never listen to this, but Jen really just at the end of the day reminded me of my big sister. So I just can't. It's just like the decisions, the spite, the immaturity, and I'm just like, I hope that Jen grows out of it because everybody doesn't. I'll tell you that. So I don't know, but yeah, that's what I got for you. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. I remember in Mississippi you said you were perpetually jet lagged, so I'm really glad that you were able to do this. Thank you.
No, I was really looking forward to this. I love talking to you in Mississippi, and I hope we run into each other soon. But being able to meet on Zoom is on Riverside on whatever software you're
Right.
using
Yeah.
is really wonderful. This has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for reading it so deeply and for feeling so strongly about it and for being so willing to go down all these rabbit holes with me.
Oh my gosh, no, literally every time, all the time. It was wonderful. Everyone who's listening, you have to read this. You have to read it with someone too, so because you can't just be in Jemimah's DMs asking her questions about it. So you need someone to unpack it with, because there are a lot of decisions made where you need to be like, is she the drama? It's so great. Thank you all. Until next time, pick something up to read, anything, and we hope that you have a good week. These books are for everybody. Goodbye.